Welcome to the Carpool Chat, from our house to the State House, the commute nobody ran for. Today's episode is with me, State Representative Rachel Roarx, State Representative Tina Bojanowski, and State Representative Sarah Stalker. We are three Louisville legislators, and we thought it would be fun to share with you some of the conversations that regularly come up as we carpool from Louisville to Frankfort, but not all the conversations.
No.
So today, we're going to start off by asking about, just kind of what's been going on this week. What have you all been working on? What's a bill that maybe has come up that you're really excited to be before your committees?
Okay, so I'll start. So number one, I'm really excited that I've been honored with the title of Ranking Minority Member. So that means that I sit up at the top of the committee room with the committee chair, and my name is on the list as minority ranking member of the Primary and Secondary Education Committee. So I don't know what it means much more than that, but at least, from the perspective of being in the minority party, sometimes it's nice to just be acknowledged for the work that you're doing. Absolutely. I'm also really excited because we did pass out of committee yesterday a bill, House Bill 389, in relation to dyslexia. Yeah. And I was the primary co-sponsor. So for bills, we have a sponsor, that's the person who filed it, and then oftentimes they'll have someone, maybe someone from the other party, so that the bill looks bipartisan, to be the primary co.
Yep.
And I'm primary co on this bill with Representative Heverin. And what this bill does is it adds dysgraphia to a dyslexia toolkit that the Kentucky Department of Education needs to prepare. And something I've been working on for years, we've had a dyslexia policy where school boards may have a dyslexia policy. And from my understanding, there is one school board, Anchorage Schools, that had a dyslexia policy. So this changes the may to a shall. So I'm a special education teacher. Oftentimes students with dyslexia aren't in the special education realm, yep. And we need to ensure that they have supports.
Well, I'm very excited about the addition of dysgraphia because I actually grew up with a friend who had it, and it was such a not common thing that people saw, and there was so much bias, I think, that she experienced kind of growing up of just trying to navigate through the education system with it. And people like me, who are her friend and friends that grew up, we regularly knew, what adaptations were needed, but I think if you'd never experienced it, you wouldn't really know.
No, it's a great thing.
Well, I'm very excited. Sarah, what about you?
Well, I'll tell you about a bill that I filed that I'm hoping will get some really good bipartisan support and that will get across the finish line, and that is House Bill 357. This is a great bill for individuals who want to support our educators and our students, and so this bill allows any educator to defer jury duty until they are not in a school year, they're not in session for school. And that's it. But that's huge, right? Because we have a teacher shortage, and that is a provision in the bill, is that as long as Kentucky is still on a teacher shortage, which we have been for years and years and years prior to the pandemic, and it only exacerbated after the pandemic. So this gives our teachers the ability to just defer that jury duty and do that in the summer or a time, when it's not going to be so disruptive to the students and to the school at large.
Right, because we definitely still want educators to be on our juries.
We most certainly do. Yeah, they play a very important role. They're very critical members of our community. And we have to acknowledge the fact that there's a shortage and the fact that we have, not only do we have a teacher shortage, but we also have a substitute teacher shortage.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And so I definitely know there's been schools and kids who have dealt with a particular class all year long, right? Maybe a particular subject area where they have dealt either with a long-term sub or just a rotating mix of substitute teachers. And so that affects our kids' ability to be academically successful.
Yeah. Well, I had a good thing that came out of committee this week from my lens of getting to have an amendment that I had proposed in previous years to a bill to make it a little bit better to ensure minority representation from the Democratic Party on essentially, because we're the minority, to include that there's a guaranteed representative for the post-secondary education work group focused around performance-based funding. So that's House Bill 96. Sponsored by the chairman of the Post-Secondary Education Committee, which is Representative Tipton. Mm-hmm. So he listened to that feedback. It was an unfriendly amendment last year.
That's right, I
and then
remember.
now it's incorporated into the bill this year. So glad to see it kind of coming around and improving what he's put forth. So
And that kind of makes me think about how the process works.
Right.
Right? So, it's how the sausage is made, sometimes they say, right? How do we end up from point A to point B? And I think in the minority party, we don't just say, oh, we have to put this in a bill because we don't have that power. But by adding it to an amendment in a year or filing a bill year after year, eventually it kind of, if it's something that's going to be good policy, it becomes absorbed. It doesn't matter to me that it's not my name on a bill. What
Right.
matters is that policy is enacted. And so this is just an example of you had an idea, you filed an amendment, got it on the record 1 year, and now it was actually in the bill. Congratulations.
well, thank you, and congratulations to you on being a ranking minority member.
Of course.
I think we build that as time goes. But definitely also this brings me to another question that comes up a lot is, how old do you even have to be here? So kicking this
Rachel,
over to
tell
you,
us.
Sarah.
Well, tell us about it, because as somebody who has held the title for being at one point the youngest member here, and at one point you're still the youngest female.
Youngest female.
Youngest female currently to serve.
An important distinction.
That's right. So you have to be age 24 by the time you take office.
I believe so, yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
And then, so that's for the House.
Yep.
And then for the Senate, you have to be age 30.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Anything else you want to say about what it feels like to come in at an early age? Because there's quite a spectrum of ages here, but more so on the other end and not so much on your end.
Well, I think the big thing is you really want a diverse array of ages making your public policy, especially when we're talking about post-secondary education, things that you're an adult and you can vote, but maybe you have no representation in the legislative body. I think that's what's so important about getting younger legislators is that you get more of a diverse array of lived experience, but also just that age variety too. So I don't think it's an inherent problem that we have legislative members that are older. I think it's a problem that we don't have that balance. And so that's what creates sometimes issues in public policy making is when you don't have that full spectrum being covered. So I was always very passionate as a teenager saying that we need younger representatives, younger elected people in elected offices, more women, and I've been really encouraged to see that change over time to where there is a little bit more representation. But of course now, I took office when I was 25, and now I'm going on 29 in March.
Right.
So my fourth year here, and it's interesting just to kind of see how, as time goes on, you're not really the youngest person anymore. So it's always about bringing people up behind you.
So kind of another logistic thing that we've been talking about a little bit is when a bill is filed and it's going through the system, so it goes from what's called the committee on committee, which I always laugh about, that there's a committee on committees, into a named committee, whether it be judiciary or education, and then to be heard on the floor. Before a bill can be heard on the floor, it has to have 3 readings. And the third reading can be actually on the day that it's heard. So there is a bill that as of today has 2 readings that I really think we should talk about. So it's House Bill 312, and effectively what it does is it reduces the age that an individual can conceal carry from 21 to 18. And 18-year-olds, about the frontal lobe development.
It's not there yet.
We're not there yet,
Not
right?
developed
Now,
until you're 25.
that doesn't change the fact that they already can carry, which
Correct.
is another concern. But, what are your all's thoughts on this bill? What do you think?
So I remember this bill my first year in 23. I believe this bill came before us when I sat on Veterans, Military, and Public Protection, so the VMAP committee. And at the time, the bill was a little different, but I'm still not in favor of it. I don't think, first of all, let me say this. I don't think our young people want this. I don't think young people are beating down the bill sponsor's door or anybody's door up here to say, we want to be able to access guns at an earlier age. The kind of flip side to that, or something to recognize, is that we're constantly talking about youth gun violence in our community. So it seems really awkward to talk about, this epidemic that we have with youth gun violence. And then at the same time, you've got people in Frankfurt who are trying to lower the age for access of it. So I find that to be really concerning.
Yeah. It has been brought to my attention that two things that will happen for 18 or 21 under 21s is, number one, they have to have a background check.
Okay.
And number two, they have to have training to do concealed carry. And we, a couple of years ago, unfortunately, much to the chagrin of even avid gun owners,
Right.
we eliminated the need to have any training for concealed carry. So I've been told that one aspect of this bill, while we don't necessarily want 18-year-olds to conceal carry or even carry maybe, but if they get that training, then when they're 21, they will have had training, even though they consider it a concealed carry. I'm still going to vote no for this bill, but that was an interesting part of the bill to me.
Yeah, I hope this is one that, before I cast a vote, I get to hear a little bit more from the public on. I think this is always the question, is like giving enough time to really get to hear feedback from people, because I'm a big proponent of background checks and trainings.
Right.
And I think you always hear the argument around like, well, if you're 18, I'm an adult, like what am I allowed to do? But obviously there's things that we prohibit until the age of 21. So definitely going to be, thinking about it, trying to listen to different voices too before ultimately deciding. But it's something that I think the 21 age protection is usually there for a reason.
Yeah, and with it having two readings, it could be heard as early as 9 o'clock tomorrow morning when we go into session.
So let's just talk really quick about what entails a reading,
What
because
is
I
a reading?
think the average person, and I always say that was me before I got
I was
into this
confused.
role,
Yeah.
it's like, what does that even mean? So we said it has to have 3 readings. The first reading will always be, correct me if I'm wrong, in a committee for a hearing.
No, the
that
readings
not?
have to be on the floor.
So the first reading
So when it comes out of committee and they do the part of our day where they mention the bills that came out of committees, that's the first reading.
So the hearing in the committee itself is
Isn't
not
considered a reading.
Okay, so but it's just the announcement that
The
it came out of
announcement
committee.
that it
So that's
came
the
out of
first one.
committee.
They literally read the title of the bill. They're like, this is the
Right.
bill, this is
I
the
always
first
thought
reading,
you read
this
the
is
whole
second
bill.
reading.
That's not a reading. You just
Right.
say the title.
And that's what I want people to understand, is that moving forward for that second and third read, it's literally just naming the title of the bill on the House
Right.
floor. The clerk's desk, they will just name it. And I've explained that to people. I'm like, that's it. That's the whole reading, which doesn't tell you, the public, what is that about?
And it can happen very fast too, so it's pretty easy to miss if you're just listening to the audio or you're watching. If you actually get like the House Daily Action, which we get emailed as legislators at the end of the day, like that'll say like, these are the bills that got their first reading and these are the bills that got their second reading, and it's important to pay attention to that, and it's something that we try to train our interns especially to watch for those things as they progress. But it's really hard. It's easy to miss if you're a regular member of the public.
Well, and it can be a signal that a bill is about to be heard. So there are several bills from last year that I was tracking that hadn't even gone through committee yet, but they had readings. And then we need to keep in mind that this is just a rule, it's not a law, it's a rule of our chamber. So upon majority vote of the chamber, we can suspend the rules.
Right.
And sometimes the most contentious bills are heard in committee and heard on the floor on the very same day.
Yep.
And
Which gives the public zero time
right.
to get
Which
here. Plus, things
One
are
could
a little,
argue that that's the intention.
Sure, absolutely. And it complicates it even more so this year because our Capitol is closed for renovations. And so the temporary chambers that we're in only, do not have a gallery for the public to come in and to literally be able to watch us on the House floor like they used to be able to. So I tell people, be aware of that, because it's really important that your presence is visible in the committee rooms when they're being heard. But it's hard. Not everybody has that kind of flexibility in their schedule to just dash off to Frankfurt because they hear a concerning bill is going to be heard that morning.
Right. It puts a lot of pressure on us to really monitor those things and make sure that we're staying on top of it.
That's right.
So this is a good example, though, of something else I want to talk about, which is Sarah, you asked the question of like, what's something here that you're still not used to? Like, what throws you off still about just the way that we function?
Because we haven't been here that long. You and I both came in
Correct.
in 23. Tina, you
This
came
is
in
my
in
8th year. I was elected in 2018.
18 for you.
So 19 was my first session.
So twice as long as us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what still feels...
Well, I'll tell you what really struck me when I first came in. And I hadn't been involved in government. I was a teacher in a public school. I still am. I think that I had anticipated that there would be much more of a separation between church and state.
Yep.
And, you know, on the front of our chamber is "In God We Trust." We open every session with a prayer. It is typically a Christian prayer. Sometimes there are others, but not very often. And there are people of all faiths.
Right.
And people who are atheists, you know, in our state. And so not only that, which is fine, I can accept that, but there is a lot of legislation that is drafted. It may not necessarily go through, but sometimes it does, you know, to put the 10 Commandments back in our schools. The bill we passed last year that had moral instruction, that students could leave school to get moral instruction at a church or a religious-based organization, and the students who stayed in school were not allowed to be working on core content.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
makes no sense.
which as a teacher, you know, I don't mind. Anyone can have whatever training they want to have, but you're going to say that my students who aren't doing that training have to wait around and do electives at that time. So that was very frustrating. So there is a lot of legislation that is filed and sometimes passes that reflects one, you know, we are granted in the Bible Belt. We are. And a chamber in another state may be different. But that to me, you know, I just had a naive view that we would have a separation of church and state. And sometimes I don't see that.
Yeah. Obviously, I grew up in a very Catholic background. I went to Catholic school, so I feel like I've always had a good flavor for that community. But when taking office, of course, I represent people of all faiths, and I even have a big, you know, Vietnamese population in my district, and there's some of the, you know, there's a couple different varieties too for like where do people want to maybe even go practice religion in the district. So there's a large Vietnamese community that's Catholic, and there's a large Vietnamese community that is also Buddhist. And so I have a very large Buddhist temple in my district, and when I go there, people are always just like reminding me like, Rachel, can like please make sure that like we're, you know, people have the freedom of religion and can practice whatever their faith may be, and just have that opportunity to really like not tailor legislation just to one specific background or religion, but really make sure that all can be accessible and included. And I think something that struck me on a Christmas Eve Mass, I heard some information from the priest there that was talking about like just another country where they weren't allowed to celebrate Christmas. And I'm like, well, that's inherent because the government said so. And I'm like, that's inherently wrong. That's why we have such a freedom of thought in America. And I want to make sure that, you know, even if people might have a particular persuasion in the district and a very strong faith, like making sure that as their elected official, like, you know, we're making good public policy for the freedom of religion.
Every Kentuckian.
Right. Sarah, what about you? Was there something that came up that you still like?
I definitely noticed that as well when I came in, and I did kind of jokingly say, you know, I've never been to church so much until I got into this job because, I mean, I did grow up a certain way and kind of moved away from the church, but I feel like I'm somebody who practices what I preach in general. So I did find that concerning, but I tell you something that I'm still not used to around here is when I will be walking down a hallway and somebody will just greet me. They'll say, "Oh, hi Representative Stalker," and that really threw me off. And it still does once in a while because I'll look at them and if I don't know them, that weirds me out. And then I have to remind myself like, oh yeah, like you're one of 100 members in the House and the staff here, like for many people, like they know who you are, right? And that makes sense, but maybe it's because I didn't plan to be here and it all just like happened so fast. I don't know what it is, but it really throws me off. And I'm somebody who likes to know people's names. And so it can make me feel a little uncomfortable when somebody knows who I am, but I can't return the same, courtesy back of knowing their name. So I'm still getting used to that like, oh yeah, people know who you are.
That's so nice.
It's a little weird at first, but.
Yep. Well,
what about you?
About me?
Anything you haven't acclimated to or gotten used to, or something that you just think is strange?
You are just meant to be here.
I came from a background in local government, so I think things that surprise people who had just gotten into government didn't really surprise me because I already had been exposed to that. I was an intern for the Kentucky General Assembly back in 2017, so I even got to get acclimated to here. I did KYA as a youth, and so for Kentucky Youth Assembly, so we came and did mock government here in the Capitol. So I think when I got interviewed as a freshman legislator by KET, I even told Renee Shaw, I was like, it kind of feels like I'm coming home. Like this is the people's house. We're meant to feel at home here, and definitely growing up in those youth and government programs made me feel like this was a place where anybody can be, and I felt welcomed.
Yeah.
So
you were comfortable already, which makes sense.
But I think that had to do with the fact that I had already been in the spaces and had already worked with people in government. So it didn't come as a shock. Yep. Well, rapid fire question to wrap us up here.
Yep.
What are you reading, watching, listening to?
Okay, so I just finished a book called Camino Island by John Grisham. I used to read John Grisham just religiously, right? No pun intended. And after maybe 15 books or so, I think I kind of faded, but I'm trying to be better about my Amazon habit.
Yeah.
And I've started going to the St. Matthew's Library, and so there's a whole bunch. John Grisham books are great kind of escape. You don't have to think too hard books. I'm also reading.
Why do you need to do that? You need to escape
Why do I need
now?
to do that? Because
why would anybody need to do that right now?
I'm so stressed about the state of our world right now, and I don't know what I'm going to do about it, and sometimes I just need to take care of me.
There's that, and we have a winter storm coming.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm also reading a book, a nonfiction book called Abundance, and it's by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, and talks about affordable housing, infrastructure, climate change. And one kind of statement, and I'm just at the beginning, it's American liberals have been more concerned with blocking bad economic development than promoting good development. And so that'll be an interesting one. It just kind of gets me thinking about things that I may not think about on a day-to-day basis. And I am watching my favorite actor of one of my favorites, Noah Wyle, on the show The Pit.
The Pit. Medically accurate for the most part. The healthcare community really loves it. And this is what I love about you, Tina. Like, you always balance your reading between something fun, but also something that's gonna help.
Some dragon love stories, and then
very popular. I will not die today.
I will not die today.
Sarah, what about you?
So I'm not reading anything because that can be a challenge for me during the session, because I tend to get in front of a book and then I immediately I'm just clonked out. I fall asleep. I am watching Fallout. Do either of you know about that? Okay, so it's a post-apocalyptic movie or show. It's after a nuclear war, and people have been, it's 200 years later, and everybody kind of got stuck that were in these tunnels, like in the 50s, right? So that's when it happened.
Bomb shelters.
So it's really interesting. There was a video game, and the video game existed in my house. There were people that played it.
That's what I was thinking.
I remember seeing it, but then they made it into a television show, and then I started watching that, and then that has spurred my spouse to start playing more of the games again. But again, these are kind of crazy times.
Like Wii bowling.
Yeah, so you just got to bring the good stuff back. The Wii bowling is great in our house. We have a lot of fun when we do it. Turns out I'm really good at Wii bowling.
I'm a pro at Wii bowling.
I don't think I'd be very good at all.
I don't think I was this good when my kids were little, but now I'm better watch out.
I'm ready to throw down with some Wii bowling. We're going to have to all get together.
We're going to have to bring one.
So I'm watching that show, and that's, it's coming out on a weekly basis. So which is good. You have to wait for it.
Right.
Though with all this crazy weather that we're getting, who knows if we're going to lose electricity. But wait, are you reading or watching or listening to anything that you want to talk about?
But I'm also excited to finish the series I'm reading because of the winter weather.
Oh, okay.
So I'm reading The Housemaid, which is obviously very popular right now because it's in theaters. Has has some of my favorite actors. I mean, aside from Sydney Sweeney. So I'm very excited to go see that. But in order to go see it, I've had to read the book. So I finished book 1. On part 3 of book 2, because there's nothing you can't do if you have an audiobook and you listen at 1.5 speed or faster.
Right.
So that's how I finished Fourth Wing so fast. But so essentially, I'm on book 2, but I have book 3. It's already in my possession. So I am going to.
You're ready to be snowed in with book 3.
Oh,
I'm ready.
There you go.
Yeah. And my cousin Challen is coming over, and we're gonna hunker down in the house and just have a little snow day party like we're kids again.
Snow day. Listen to you. You think it's going to be one day?
We could be in for a rude
awakening.
I don't know. I saw a meme. It just cracked me up. It said, you can expect 0 to 85 inches of snow. Everything gets all blown up. But I think that this one is to take seriously.
I think
that we're going to have a pretty significant snowfall. And there have been a couple of storms. There was one in the 77, 78 years.
94.
And then 94, I was 8 months pregnant during that one. We had a big hunk of snow. So, and Sarah's been prepping us with all the things we need to do at home. So do a little search, make sure you charge up all your batteries.
Yeah. Have extra gasoline on hand make sure all your vehicles are filled up, because also if you can only get out to start your car, that might be the only place you could charge a phone, for example, once your power banks or and the phones themselves have gone out. So I always tell people, make sure your car's filled up, and then make sure if you have those extra red cans that you fill those up too.
Rachel, tell us, what does the city of Louisville put out that helps you in an emergency like this?
What a great thing. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Okay. Lens alerts. If you are not already signed up for a lens alert. It's LENS, lens alert system, and that's for anything that is involving critical weather that could be impacting your area. But it also is like if an active shooter was in your area or a chemical spill happened, the plane crash, we got lens alerts. Yeah. So it's really a good tool to have to be signed up for. You can get text messages or emails, or even have it like voice to text, like it can speak to you. So it's the other way. It can read the text to you to let you know what the alert is. So it's a really great tool. But also, when you're not on the roads, you need to know what roads are passable and how they've been treated. The Louisville Metro mapping system actually puts out a snow map, so you can just Google Louisville Metro snow map.
Did not know this.
And it'll tell you, if you click on the interactive map, the features will tell you what roads have been treated and how they've been treated. So one color will mean it's been broned. Another color will mean it's been plowed. It'll tell you how many passes of those things it's done, what time it went through on that street. So it's a very nifty little tool. Recently Louisville Metro updated their snow route maps for including more streets, because we had heard feedback from last year about some streets that weren't included. So if for some reason your street's not included and you think it should be, the Metro Council members are very attentive to those needs. Okay. We would happily take those calls too to get to the bottom of that, but we're always open to feedback. But those are some of my favorite tools, especially that
She said
snow
we're
map.
always open to feedback. She still works for Metro Council.
I do communicate heavily with those Metro Council members.
If you're on the expressway, make sure to watch out for deer. We were notified during session today that the deer like to eat the salt. So
was that true?
I don't know if it's true or
was
not.
that a joke? I couldn't tell.
I don't know.
I guess it might be true.
Well, I think they do. They have those.
But is it the same kind of salt? Is it just salt?
That I don't.
We don't.
I couldn't tell if it was a joke or if it was serious.
I don't think it's the same sort of salt. I feel like there's a chemical.
If you're watching this, drop a note in the comment and tell us, do deer actually like salt, or is that a danger to them? We want to learn. Right. We want to know.
Two different.
On that note,
us city folks don't know. Someone please tell us. I learned what a meat hog was from the gentleman from Edmondson. So there's things like that you just sometimes just got to ask your what my seatmate would call my city mouse friends.
Yes.
I'm a city mouse friend. She's a country mouse friend. And sometimes you got to ask your country mouse friend. What does this thing mean?
Right.
Well, we hope that you've enjoyed the second edition of the Carpool Chat. We'll see you next time.
We hope.
Today's episode has been sponsored by Houseplants. Have you checked on yours today?